What's up, guys? Today I've got a brief story to tell. Story time. Spoiler warning! Probably 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 now, I watched the movie Ella McCay, completely randomly, never saw a trailer for it or anything. And let me see if I can give a brief, overview synopsis of it. I'm gonna write it down really quick. Bro, I'm gonna look up a synopsis really quick. Okay, I've got to write my own because I think writing it in a specific way frames it as I think most audiences saw it. Okay, here's my one sentence. Young quirky politician wants to do good for society, but family problems with a promiscuous dad, spastic kid brother, and hyper husband get in the way. I think that's kind of the general vibe somebody watching the movie would take. But I watched the movie 4 weeks ago, and I stepped out of it and I was like, I really like that movie. That was a good movie. Upper 7s, maybe an 8. And I texted my friend Justin. I was like, hey, yo, you should watch this movie. And then I went to see the reviews because nowadays I watch so many movies. I'm like, oh, bro, this was dookie mid, whatever. And I go to look at the reviews and I'm going to pull it up. Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter gives it a 24%. And the popcorn meter gives it a 57%. IMDb giving it a 5.2 out of 10. Letterboxd a 2.5. Overall, pretty... the Rotten Tomatoes score is tragically low. And the other scores are just mid. And I felt like a real disconnect with how society seems to have rated it. But I do that with a lot of things. So I didn't really think about it. I was like, society's done whatever, bye. And I didn't really think about it until a YouTube channel that I'd recently subscribed to posted a review. And most of what they were saying, absurd to me. It seemed not just to be missing the point, but to fundamentally misunderstand the movie. And I was like, what the hell? I was put off by it, and I think it was mostly due to that type of synopsis I gave before. Young quirky politician wants to do good for society, but family problems with a promiscuous dad, spastic kid brother, and hyper husband get in the way. They view Ella as one note, a goody two shoes, and nothing else. They view all the characters, the brother, the dad, the husband, her aunt, which I didn't bring up in the synopsis, mostly because she's just a supporting character. But they're all very quirky and individual and bombastic in a type of way. That might not be the right word, but it gets the point across. And it seems a consensus from the average person is that all of these personalities clash in a way that doesn't make sense, that the story in total doesn't do much. I instantly found that wrong. Within 5 minutes of trying to put it into concise words, I was like, the movie is about how Ella McCay, fill in the sentence, how she deals with life, family life, work life. And I think it is an interesting movie and concept and well done because of who Ella McCay is. I ended up watching the movie with Justin, and he put it nicely. I said a force for good fighting, and then he was able to finish this sentence, fighting an imperfect world. And I think that really does pull together the overhead view of the movie and why it's interesting. Because Ella McCay politically wants to do good things for her society and isn't afraid to not be she wants to be the people's friend and not the politician's friend. She wants to get things done even if it's hard. And the people around her in her workplace, don't necessarily fuck with her like that because they even say it in the movie. She kind of makes them look bad just by working so hard. And I think the dynamic of not good versus bad, but trying to be good versus an imperfect world, I think honestly it might be more of a strong versus weak. A thing that's been popping in my head recently is that humans are inherently weak. And being strong is not only something you do for yourself, but because humans are inherently weak, you're fighting yourself on the weakness, but you also end up unintentionally fighting everyone. And it's because of the human nature of that battle of a strong versus a weak in terms of humanity that makes it interesting. The way Ella McCay has to deal with her politician boss. It's She has to baby him a little bit, but she has to be forceful. The way she deals with her father, she lets herself be a bit more emotional and openly upset because, it's a family matter. I don't know. I think in general, it's an interesting idea, and if it's executed well, if it feels genuine in the actors, it's hard not to tell a good story, I think, of that nature. And I think all the actors did pretty good, especially Ella McCay. I don't know who her actress name is. And this kind of, in general, that's why I think the movie's good. And so I want to bring up, some of the Rotten Tomatoes comments that feel like they're missing the point. I'm literally just going to read through just one by one and react to them. But before we react to them, just in case you haven't watched the movie, I'm going to give a crazy quick synopsis. Here we go. So Ella McCay is told by her boss that he's getting a promotion and she's taking his place. Some reporters trying to blackmail her because with work, she has no time for a marriage and is renting an apartment under a government building to have sex with her husband on lunch break. She later learns it's technically a misuse of government funds, so she goes to her aunt's bar to get some advice about it. Little does she know, her father that she hasn't talked to in forever because he's a cheating bastard man, surprises her to convince her to reconnect on the demands of his new girlfriend. This guy always has a new girlfriend, or a few. She doesn't want to reconnect because he's never actually been sorry for any of his philandering. Ella gets her new promotion and her husband is upset she forgot to thank him in her speech. Ella goes to talk with her brother who's been ghosting her for a while. She finds out he's been locked in with work and a little bit closed off because he may have ran away from his girlfriend. Ella hangs out for a bit and gives him some advice. She then wants to get ahead of the blackmail stuff, so she tells the world about the sexy time and the misuse of government spending and says she'll pay it all back. Ella's husband is upset because she didn't talk with him about the press conference and tells her he paid off the reporter without talking to her. Whoopsie, that's extortion. Not good for Ella. Her husband is still upset about not thanking her in her speech and gives an ultimatum that she give him a position on her staff so he can feel important, or they separate. That's not love. She says bye. Ella's party wants her out. She's able to use some leverage to get one last good thing done before she leaves. Pretty much, there's an overarching plot of her political ongoings and 3 little subplots of her dad, her brother, and her husband going on throughout the overarching plot. But that is obviously a very shortened version of the movie, so if you want to understand what I'm talking about, I would recommend you watch it. But let's get into these reviews. Critics' consensus: well-intentioned but woefully undisciplined. We'll get to that. But they bring up James L. Brooks. This is another, downfall of the movie. I think many, especially critics or James L. Brooks fans, came into this movie expecting, a very specific thing, and he was doing something else, I guess. I don't know what movies he's made or whatnot, but a lot of the heinously negative reviews just seem to be an audience expectation error and not necessarily something literally wrong with the movie, which is why everything else just puts it at a 57-ish. And I do think 57-ish is acceptable for it makes sense that most people wouldn't be reading into why I find the characters interesting in the same way, so I'm okay with this, but the 24% seems crazy. James L. Brooks' comedy about a woman trying to have it all is so tonally misjudged that it winds up with not much of anything to recommend. Tonally misjudged, woefully undisciplined. So this is the other thing that we'll get to later. There are so many, I was going to say there's so many undercurrents. I think there's 2 or 3 major things James L. Brooks is trying to say with this movie or talk about. And saying woefully undisciplined without being able to see or understand what he's going for seems absurd to me. I mean, first we've got the strong versus weak, force for good versus imperfect world. The way he executes on it, misses no beats. So woefully undisciplined sounds crazy. Tonally misjudged, if I had to guess, let's see. I think people hold it against this movie that the characters are quirky. I'll get into why I think it is actually a benefit to this movie that the characters are quirky. But even from the point of view of the easy synopsis I gave earlier, is any of this, none of this general overview is actually tonally misjudged. All of its surface level conflicts and quirkiness don't actually, I don't think, tonally clash in a crazy way. I think a movie that was more tonally absurd to me personally was the new Fantastic Four movie. The dialogue in that movie was so cheesy that it made the rest of the movie just fall apart for me. And that is where there's like a clash of tone of a serious family-oriented group in a superhero action movie versus the most unrealistic cheesy dialogue ever. I don't know. Here's the thing. It's not the surface level problems that the movie, like conflicts that the movie faces, aren't lessened by the quirky personalities. So Totally Misjudged seems a little odd. Nice. Let's see what the audience had to say. It's hard to stay disenchanted, which means it's easy to stay enchanted. They love using crazy words. These ones are okay because they actually are getting to the point they're trying to make, but it's hard to stay disenchanted. Double negative type thing, it's annoying to me. Okay, it's hard to stay disenchanted with Ella McCay the woman, but as a film, its earnest and dated approach sabotages the seed of true rebellion it plants, which never fully blooms. So this is the other thing you'll see in these ratings, that it's got a, air quotes, dated approach. The reviewer I heard didn't like the narrator in what she did. He literally said, like, she's just saying the plot, like, before it happens. It, like, ruins the surprise of watching the movie to see what happens. And I think, one, I disagree with it because she doesn't, like, literally spoil all the plot crazy style. But two, because of what this movie is, that you're supposed to be enchanted with Ella McCay and how she interacts with the world, even knowing like a few notes of what is about to happen does not encapsulate how Ella McCay will approach problems and why that is interesting. But dated approach, there are some comments about it feeling dated, not in its like themes, but I don't know, maybe it's like literally a disconnect with how movies used to be made, because it is made more in the style of an older movie, which I actually appreciated, because having a score really good for a movie, in my opinion. And I don't know, that's the thing it pulls most from its air quotes dated approach, in my opinion. I'm trying to think. I guess you could say that its bombastic personalities are a thing that used to happen more with older movies, but I don't really like, I connect more with any of the characters in this movie than I do with like Liam Neeson in Taken. Because it's like, yeah, he's not a quirky person, but it's like also there's very little depth to his character. The quirkiness allows you to see deeper, I would say. But let's get into more reviews that, I don't know, maybe get into specifics that I can actually talk about. Decent but forgettable, funny performances, but a bland storyline. Again, that gets to my point where the literal storyline takes place over the span of 3 days is not supposed to be crazy. It is supposed to be the people in it that are interesting. We got a normie viewer, and I'm okay with that. We enjoyed this movie, sweet movie, good cast. That seems like a normal take for this movie. 5 stars might be a bit crazy, but yeah. I could have waited to watch this on television. It was cute, but not great. And here's the thing. I'm fine with like a 3-star, it was mid, because looking into the depths of movies is not something a normal person cares to do. And I'm fine with that. But I don't know, let's see if I can find one that it seems the person rating it does think they're looking deep into the movie, but based on my opinion of what this movie about, it seems like they probably weren't. This is one of the worst films I have seen in as long as I can remember. I found it painful to watch, impossible to care about, and just so poorly put together. What a shame. I'd say the only credence I give to Claudia Y is impossible to care about. Some people, in the way that I was heinously put off by the dialogue in Fantastic Four, I can see that some people wouldn't be able to suspend their disbelief and accept the quirky characters in this film as real, in the same way I didn't accept the dialogue in Fantastic Four as real. So I will say I'm okay with that take. Poorly put together, again, I think is not understanding what the movie is about. Enjoyable, but at times the plot was confusing. I'm sorry, Eugenia S., but this is crazy. Having bland storyline and plot was confusing, like one review away from each other. I don't know. I think we could guesstimate that maybe some people aren't understanding the movie. Okay, hold on. I actually have to open this one. Don't forgive those who have wronged you. Saying sorry can come too late. Compromise is a bad word. are just some of the truly terrible bits of advice this film gives to a younger generation desperately in need of some advice. Even Harrelson and Curtis can't save this one. So, this is interesting because I feel it misses the context of the points. Don't forget those who have wronged you. Spoilers. This is about her father, who continuously cheats on her mother, even while she's on her deathbed, and is unapologetic about, like, he doesn't really truly apologize about any of it. And the reason that don't forgive those who have wronged you is okay in this context is because the father, from when the movie shows him in the beginning, like when Ella McCay is like 16 to now when she's a politician, she's like a senator for a day or something, he changes zero, continues to cheat, continues to be selfish. I think it's okay to not forgive that man. Like it is more unhealthy to forgive someone who will continue to hurt you than to not forgive them and just say bye. Like, that's not a crazy take. Saying sorry can come too late. It's saying that that's a terrible bit of advice. This is like somebody, I'll give the most dramatic extension of this point. Somebody on their deathbed saying, actually, God, I do believe in you. Please let me into heaven. I think you might be saying sorry too late. I don't think that's a crazy bit of advice. And what is the context in the movie? The context in the movie is, again, relating to the dad. And again, his sorry does not mean anything. So it's crazy to have a problem with that. And then I think it's also literally talking about when the husband says I'm sorry, but again, that's at the point where he's given a crazy ultimatum and showed that he like doesn't know how to care properly. He has so much growth to do that it's like sticking around there would be crazy. His apology's too late. He should have tried to fix stuff way earlier. Compromise is a bad word. I would guess this is about the husband who is forcing Ella McCay's hand at every point in this movie until she says bye to him. And it's like, again, why is it a terrible piece of advice to not hang around like emotional manipulators? Like, crazy. I just remembered exactly what they're talking about. Compromise is a bad word is something Ella like literally says out loud. She likes replacing it with a different word. And I think the context in politics is that often compromise leads to nothing happening. And as is shown in the movie, Ella McCay's a definition person. Compromise, an agreement to settle a dispute that is reached by making concessions, accepting standards that are lower than desirable. Ella's point with that exact phrase, that she doesn't like compromise, and it's a bad word, is because when you're talking about the welfare of the people, which is what she's doing as a politician, why would we accept standards that are lower than desirable? Either way, well, the first hour we both thought it was quirky and different and interesting, and the end sort of faded out, ending like Mary Poppins drifting away under her umbrella. Oh, Reddit-ass comment. Not really saying anything, just saying it was mid, I guess. I enjoyed, great cast, and was perfect for a snowy night. And this is what I assumed the average take would be. That was a fun movie. And that's why I told my friend Justin he should watch it. Not only because I enjoyed the movie and thought it was fun, but because it hit on some subconscious level that is interesting. That's the other thing. I also told him his mom should watch it. Since the last time I was at their house, she was watching some Hallmark movie and it was so bad, she was like, that's dog shit, and turned it off in the middle of the movie. And I was like, hey, she could just watch this. Here we go. Truly one of the worst movies I have ever seen. I am so surprised by such big names were willing to work in the movie. Maybe it's because they understood what the underlying story was trying to say. It just never launched the whole time. 3/4 of the movie, I felt like I was waiting for it to start. There's a kind of similar take in the initial review that I listened to. And again, I think it's missing the point of like, I should probably stop saying the same thing over and over again, but missing the point of it is not the surface level what's happening in the movie that's interesting, it is the human interactions. And the pinnacle was her husband of 17 years threatening divorce so he would have a title in the government. It just made no sense. So this, we can get into this now. One of the big undertones that this, like underpoints that this movie is trying to make is not only what is maturity, what is like being an adult, but also what is family. So for the first two, what is maturity, what is being an adult? Her husband I've watched the movie twice now. I can, with extreme certainty, say that her husband and her father are supposed to act like children. Like, literally, there's a scene where the husband is in his pizza store and his, like, dad's doing the numbers on what they made today or something, and his mom's like, you should ask for a roll because you're important. And when you watch it the first time, it just looks like the husband's doing papers on the table. When you watch it the second time and have time to look around, you'll notice that he is literally doing, like, the kids' coloring page that the restaurant hands out for a pizza. And it's like, already there's so many points in the movie that are like trying to tell you that the husband and the father are selfish and act like children. And that one, I think, is like the biggest point of James L. Brooks being like, look at him. He's literally doing a kid activity and listening to his mom tell him what to do and not making any decisions, and then going around everywhere and smiling and saying yippee and being confused when it doesn't work out. So I think this review might be missing the point. He spent high school and college wooing her and then just screwed over his high school sweetheart he seemed so in love with in the matter of 2 weeks. Or again, they're missing out on a general context that he might have some problems throughout the entire movie, and that even though it might not be literally shown, many other people in her life are like, especially her aunt is like, I don't rate this guy. Again, very odd writing, and the way they wrapped it up was just cheeky. Sad because it seemed like it could be a decent flick. The way they wrapped it up being cheeky is a point I can agree with. The movie wraps up with Ella McCay being forced out of office, but she's able to sneakily play her last hand and get a piece of legislation, don't know if that's the right word, done that helps a cause she cares about. And the movie at the end is like, yippee, we help so many people. Which I think is cheeky in the sense that it literally comes to fruition within like the span of 5 minutes. It comes to fruition, I don't know if that's the right word. It all comes together within 5 minutes, but the groundwork was like being laid up until there. Like, you're not surprised what she goes for. You might just be like, it wrapped up really quickly and simply, I guess. But again, this is a point about the surface level story, which again isn't what the movie is about. Even in the scene that wraps up quickly, you're seeing so many human dynamics. Her and her, I want to say role model, but it's not her previous boss, the new senator or something. I can't remember what her no, he's not a senator. He's like in the cabinet. That's what it is. You get to see their interactions. You get to see her for the first time actually interacting with her peers at her level that the movie has been saying the whole time they all hate her. And then they go in and hate her, and you see that they're just like, I don't know, kind of simple and selfish in a way. Either way, I would say that saying it wrapped up cheeky, that's an okay comment. Annoying characters and so boring. Too bad this was probably his last film. That's a crazy thing to say. It's like pissing on someone's grave. Weird that this movie made people so mad and snarky. I think it's basically fine. Not great, but fine. Yeah, James L. Brooks is too old and rich to know anything about the real world, but does he still know how to make a movie? Open up a bottle of wine, curl up on the couch, and enjoy this goofy and cute distraction with friends. Okay, I think we don't need to read a crazy amount more. I've made my general points. I want to get into why this movie and the review continued to like persist in my mind afterwards. And I kept thinking about it. And it's because of the various undercurrents the movie has. I didn't talk about what is family, what makes family that I noted on earlier. And what the movie does is it shows a broken family, aka Ella McCay's family, who her father just ruined by having affairs with everyone. And it shows that a strong person, Ella McCay, can come from it. And it's a little bit in spite of her father, but it's also a little bit because she has such a loving aunt. And then on the other hand, it shows a normal family, her husband, with a mom and a dad and a son who all work together and like have family dinners and game nights and vote on where to go on vacation and shit. And it shows that motherfucker never grew up. It's not even that he just never grew up. It's that he never saw the real variety and hardships of life. So he never had the chance to grow up. So the movie's saying that. The movie is also a few little tidbits that I really appreciated about the movie are what I feel the comments that we're making on what made Ella McCay strong, which I think is when it's showing It's like one of the first scenes. Ella is a 16-year-old, and her dad has to like go to some press conference to be like, we all still love each other, even though I'm a cheating bastard man. And it is just tearing her mother apart, and she just can't take it. I think this is a very important thing, and was shown on purpose, that often strength comes from seeing people get hurt. More often than yourself being hurt. And I think that is also why the characters are so quirky. And because it's like your coping mechanisms and emotional understanding and way of dealing with things can get twisted in that sort of way. You've got that sort of broken family. And then the last little note I want to add is something that happened when she has to say, I guess we're getting separated, to her husband, is something I see a lot with, air quotes, strong people. During the fight they're having, she is trying to stay composed, not just for herself, but like for the sake of actually getting somewhere in the conversation. And her husband's like freaking out. And not only is that like a signifier of being strong, when it comes down to it and he puts just like a crazy ultimatum in front of her, she does this thing for a moment. And this is part of why I think the movie was acted so well and designed so well as like a holistic piece. Is she's going through like a horrible thing, your husband threatening to divorce you over the stupidest thing ever, and you realize he doesn't care enough about you or doesn't like understand how that should work. And she does, I don't know what to call it, it's like a sour smile. It's something I see people do, and I sometimes do myself, where it's just like, this is ironic. But it's like, and you're doing a smile, but you're feeling a horrible. And then she's like, well, guess we're done. And then leaves. And I don't know, I feel like there's so many little things going on in this movie and so many little undercurrents perfectly laid out that it is crazy not just to not vibe those out on a watch through, but then to like say you're a critic and have a take that just doesn't listen to those at all. Yeah, I don't know, this movie's just been sitting in my head rent free, not because, well, it is a little bit because of how the depths the movie has, but also because of how many people missed a lot of those points. It's interesting because I think the movie is executed a 10 out of 10, but because of like what the plot is, I can't give it any more than a 7. Even in my heart, I'm like, I want to give it a low 8, but I'm like, I can't. It's a 7. I forgot to explain why I think the characters are quirky, and I'm kind of glad I did because it's a little hard to explain, and writing it down beforehand got it a little more concise and led me to some other stuff. First obvious reason why they're quirky, it just like, I don't know if this is the right word, but it's like just a foil for comedy, you know, it's just a way to get there. But the deeper thing is that I think naturally quirky characters are more easily humanizable, like you empathize with them more, because everybody's quirky, you know, weird and unique. We just like don't show it all the time. And I think having these quirky characters relates them more to, you know, people's subconscious quirky self. And I also think that the bombastic type of personality aids to all the little subpoints that aren't the surface level plot of this movie. Like a fairy tale with a simple but magical or mystical setting that's showing real points and morals, is the bombastic quirky cast and a unique and odd plot that shows real points. And that is what this story innately felt like to me from the get-go. And I was internally forced to think about it when I heard that initial review that I thought was missing the point, which there are many of. The political scene that has more stupid social dynamics than work done for the people. How deeply flawed or selfish people just like never grew up. How a weak person can come from never facing real adversity. How a strong person can come from seeing weak people get hurt or seeing weak people never stand up for themselves. How one force for good can make more, i.e. the aunt, then Ella, then the people who work for her, and so on. It's just like a good movie to me. And another point, circling back to the quirky thing, I haven't even talked about the most quirky motherfucker in this movie, her brother. It took me a while to find a reason why he was like in the movie. And it really did eat at me because it's like so much of this movie is done so on purpose. It's like, why? But thinking about quirkiness and the lessons that can be learned from this movie, I think he's here to show how it's okay to be flawed. He has his own little side plot where he's like an idiot and a little childish, but it works out for him because he's not selfish and he's genuine. And that leads us to like the second biggest thing this movie's trying to say, which I missed until writing this. Like the first thing is good versus imperfect world. I still think that. And then latently, sitting under the entire movie in every aspect, it's don't be selfish. It doesn't work out for her dad, her husband, and I'm just now realizing, in the same way the husband drawing on the coloring page is supposed to slap you in the face that he acts like a child, the brief subplot where the new security guard abuses overtime and gets chewed out for it is supposed to be like, don't be selfish. I don't know, bro. It's like, I really like this movie for all these reasons and more, and that initial review eats me up inside because it seems crazy to not see any of that, to not even feel that the creator of Ellen McCay is putting something together. Like, I didn't get to all these points until I was forced to, mentally, internally, from these waxing reviews. But it's just like, I knew to think deeply because it's too specific. There's too much attention to detail. And I looked close, and I fully believe and see underlying narrative that's covered up with a simple facade that the everyman can consume latently. And I think that's really fucking good, bro. I think it's good. I think to round this off, I'm going to look at the reviews on Wikipedia because I saw them while trying to put together my plot summary, and then we'll round this out. Oh, we didn't even see the Metacritic score. It says it's 39 out of 100. Generally unfavorable reviews. Cinema Score gave it a B- though. So the dynamic of like people who think they're critics, I think people who think they're critics are the only people who are like gonna care enough to be like, that was ass, and drag the score to a 36. But the fact that they're all missing something, I think there's a lot there. It's crazy. Let's see what Adrian Horton of The Guardian said. A mess. A clunky collection of incoherent characters and confounding plot that seem to defy basic story logic at every turn, and not in a surprising or intriguing way. He's probably right, chat. He's probably right. Woefully short on charm? I feel like this movie, if anything, is piling on charm. I haven't even talked about that, but like that's part of its, I forgot what that one review said. It's dated kind of tactic. It's trying to be charming, and I do think it is, which is what gave me that bubbly, that was a good movie feeling after I first watched it. Plot is a contrived hodgepodge of so many similar 80s and 90s tales that it plays as a brand spanking new relic. Bruh, I'm getting upset at the quirkiness of how they word things. But a contrived hodgepodge? Again, missing the point. IMO. Got a positive one. Optimism is so refreshing, dialogue so smart, and its characters and performances so endearing it rewards a watch. I think that's the normal thing that somebody would take away from this movie. Not my crazy, deep underlying, what is he saying? I think it's just like optimism refreshing, dialogue smart, characters and performances endearing. Either way, that'll end it there. I haven't made a movie review video before, mostly because either a movie's really good and it's old and so I don't need to talk about it because a million people have already, or more often a movie's ass and I don't want to make a million videos about like movies I hate. I started clipping together compilations from that Fantastic Four movie of the just horrible cheesy dialogue, and then I was like, this isn't worth it. I can't put more negativity out there. I'm hurting myself with this one. And it's a tough dynamic because it's like either I'm just saying this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, or if a movie's good, I'm probably not saying something interesting. You could just watch the movie and be like, that was good. Fortunately, just by happenstance, there was a movie I thought was good, and then the conflict, for the video, is everybody else hated it. All the critics were like, pfft. And I don't know, it worked out for me. I'm pretty happy this is my first video reviewing a movie, and I think I did pretty solid. Either way, I'll see you guys next time.